We chat CFL with Jim Barker every Friday, maybe some other leagues too as we move into true football season. Here we got him from the CFL on TSN panel. By the way, Coach, if I may be so bold and call you Coach, when I mentioned yesterday your name, here in the casino, everybody's like, Jim Barker, Jim Barker. I said, oh, yeah, he'll be on Friday. So you had some good times in Calgary, Coach, if I'm not mistaken.
I did. I had, really 7 great years. Started as the coach with Michael Federick and went in thinking I was going to be able to, replace Wally Buono with a guy who's owned a team so his kid could play quarterback. And it was a rough year, but I hung around Calgary for some personal reasons. And the next year, John Ferzani and Ted Hellard came to me, asked me if I could be a GM, and I said, absolutely, I can do that. So I basically did nothing but was a GM for 5 years when Huff got here, he wanted to be GM, so I moved to senior vice president. But I had spent the first 3 years with Tom, and then Huff came, and then I left in 2010 to go to Toronto. So, yeah, I have many friends in Calgary, and it's one of my favorite places in Canada.
Oh, it's awesome. Awesome. And it's an underrated CFL city. And I will talk about the Argo Stamps tonight in a second. But last night, the mauling in Winnipeg, the Blue Bomber beatdown, 50-14 over the Lions. I saw your assessment post-game on the panel. This was a statement. Your thoughts, if you can break it down, what they did to BC last night.
Yeah, there's no doubt. This was, you have to remember, though, and put it in perspective, that BC lost their backup quarterback, and really in the first half when Big Hill made that hit. And BC's coming off of a short week, and they had a week to prepare and had played the team they played. That's a huge advantage. So good on Winnipeg for coming out and answering the call, but they beat them in every way you can beat a team. And Paul LaPolice and I did a thing called the Coordinator Corner, and I talked a lot about, in watching the film of the first game, whenever they lined up with a tight end or a tight slots and things like that, they just, BC gave big problems. So my assignment was, how would you attack them? Well, 6 of their 7 touchdowns were scored with a tight end on the field. So I think that Winnipeg has found something that teams are going to start to exploit on this BC defense. Ryan Phillips has done a great job with them. But again, over time, things start to catch up, and he's going to have to make some adjustments to get them back on track. So I thought it was a crucial game for Winnipeg, because if they lose the season series to them, that puts them into, I thought, drop them into the next class. And there's definitely, I see 3 classes right now, the top 3, the middle 3 or 4 you could call, and then Edmonton. And Calgary doesn't win tonight, they could easily slip into that Edmonton group. And it's a big game for Calgary, and I know that they will be ready to play. They're like that dog in the corner. And you come in as Toronto, and it's such a, it's like another game, even though all these coaches came from Calgary. But the bottom line comes down, and we talked about it last night. It comes down to Calgary's got to block that defensive front of Toronto, and I just don't know if they can do it. I don't know whether their defensive front can hold up. Cam Judge is a game-time decision. So this whole weekend has got really fascinating games. I mean, tomorrow we have Hamilton-Montreal in a huge game in the East. 2 teams that one of them's is gonna assume the number 2 position. And then Sunday, the Saskatchewan game. This is a must-win for Saskatchewan. As much as there's a must-win, you play Ottawa at home, that's a huge game for them. If they were to lose to Ottawa at home, I think that drops them a level. So, again, I think this is a huge one, because they got beat pretty bad by Toronto.
I love that I could just go for a sandwich. I'm like, Hey, Coach. And away you go. I love it. You just segued all the games. I love it. One into the next. It's awesome. However,
I'm so excited.
you have we all are, dude. I am too. I love watching it. But you've upset a Stamps fan, Janelle. She says, another class, excuse me. 2-5, sis. Could be 2-6 after tonight. They don't like that here. They're not used to it, Jim.
What class excuse? I don't understand what a class excuse is.
Well, you said, I think you said 3 different classes.
Oh,
top class, middle class.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
they think they're in the top class.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
they have Edmonton on Labor Day. Somebody has to win that. So, again, I thought Calgary's been bit by injuries, and it's an excuse. But the bottom line is they're playing Bryce Bell at left tackle, and he hasn't done that. He's been a sixth man his whole career. Now he's playing left tackle, and tonight he's blocking Flo Remalade, who has seen him because he was in Calgary last year, and that's a tall order. And then when you put Oakman and Hendricks and Brinkman inside, and you bring Brendan Barlow off the other edge. It's a tall order for Calgary for their offensive line to protect Jake Mayer. And Jake Mayer's really in his first year, just like Chad Kelly. They're very much in the same boat. So, again, I just look at how teams have played to this point, and Calgary has just turned the ball over too much and has not played solid enough to be considered in the upper tier of teams in the league.
People don't like to hear the truth, Jim. I think you've realized that. Clay and Brandon says, I love Jim Barker on TSN and the RP show. So do we, Clay, but thank you for pointing that out. We all do. John in Winnipeg, John Ohm, says it's a statement game for Mason Fine on Sunday. We need to talk about that for the Rider fans tuned in, how big this is. Have you seen him getting better, Coach? What did you see coming out of TD Atlantic? And Craig Dickinson, there was no second guessing. He's starting week 9 against Ottawa.
Yeah, and he should. I mean, they put 2 years. They invested 2 years into this guy. And you don't develop quarterbacks by having him come in the league like what Dustin Crum has done, and he's playing 4 weeks later, and he's learning that way. But that's not how you develop. They've developed this guy, and it's time for him to show whether he's good enough to take a team to a Grey Cup. You don't, again, having a backup quarterback that isn't good enough to take your team to the Grey Cup is a waste. So they need to allow him to play. He's against Toronto. He wasn't horrible. I mean, again, the offensive line doesn't help him. And against that defensive front, he was taking some huge shots, but made some courageous throws and did some things that I don't see him making the huge mistakes. But I also don't see him making the people around him better. And that's what a quarterback has to do. I see Chad Kelly, again, he's just learning. He's a brand new quarterback, but I see him making guys around him better. I think that the offensive line, I think they've given up like 5 sacks all year. And while they're good, some of that is just him making him better. And I think that's what Mason Fine needs to do. I was so excited last week to watch him against Toronto and was a little disappointed that it didn't come out a little bit better. But again, for them to just jump to Dolagala, I see Dolagala, just as I don't know. He's a big, strong. He's a little like Taylor Cornelius. He's tall, 6'6" guy. Who's the last 6'6" quarterback you've seen that was successful in the CFL, Rod?
Never. Sorry, never.
It's just
not in my time.
I don't know why. I don't know. I haven't seen one over 6'4" that's been real successful. So, again, I see him as that guy who's strong-armed, but he's inaccurate. And that's just how I think Mason Fine has a chance.
We got 4 minutes, and this is burning on me. I need your take as an offensive guy on the switch in Edmonton. Stephen McAdoo out, Jarius Jackson in. And a quarterback change, too. How do you feel that's going to play out?
Well, I mean, it can't play out. They had to do something. Steve McAdoo had a run at it, and how is it going to play out? I don't think there'll be a huge difference. Jarius, It says he's been a coordinator. When he was with us in Toronto, he was never a coordinator. So I don't know that he's done that, but he'll be a play caller, which will, you'll see how he does. He's been a long-time quarterback. McAdoo, they're actually moving him all the way over to defense so that there's no influence from McAdoo on the offensive guys. I think it's a really difficult situation that the board put them in by not having enough options and, with their whole situation with past staffs and things like that. So they had to do something. The new quarterback, again, is that going to be the answer? Obviously, now they've made a decision on Taylor Cornelius, yet they gave him a contract last year that pays him $100,000 next year, regardless of what happens. So, he'll get paid next year, but will he be there? It's hard to tell. So, again, is it going to be Trey Ford? Is he going to be put in a situation? I believe their number one problem, and I've said it from the beginning, was their offensive line. I don't think they addressed it in the offseason. I think they're poor up front. Cordy was a good tackle in Ottawa. He's an okay center. Cardila's just small and seems to get overhauled, and Foucault has struggled inside, and Garnett has been, he's been hurt a lot. And so I don't know. I'm not sold on that offensive line. And when you don't have a good offensive line, it's so difficult to evaluate a quarterback. So I don't know. Hopefully they're using their week wisely and trying to come up with some way to not turn the ball over, allow their defense to play, work on their special teams, because it's going to take whichever quarterback plays time. And, good luck for Darius.
Well, it's quite absolutely pray for Jarius. But it's just interesting you brought up the board, because I've been saying the same thing for weeks, and I just think fans give the community-owned team boards too free of a pass. They don't understand, A, it all kind of starts there, for one. I don't think they'll ever understand that. And two, on the offensive line, it all starts there as well. I don't know what Joe Pascucci's watching.
Matt Dubuque.
Yeah, Dubuque, Coach Dubuque's next. Yeah, next. Yeah, you're going to have to... I'll ask him about it. He's, oh my gosh, Coach. He's three-time state Florida high school champion coach, and he's on now as an analyst with you every Friday. Well, yeah, once a week anyways. And now the football guys are on his ass saying, "You're media now, Coach. You're not a football guy anymore." Are you getting that? Are you getting that?
No, not at all. I'm excited to be able to give a different perspective. I just think that my perspective is just different. I mean, Milt he's brilliant. Matt Dunnigan, fantastic. David, those guys are all good. Lapo. But my perspective's different, because I've been a GM and I've been a head coach. I've been an assistant coach, so I've seen the whole thing, from every angle. So I love the fans of the CFL. So anytime I can give them something that maybe is a little bit different, that's exciting for me. It really is.
It's been missing on the panel since Bob Obelovich and probably E.T. Wow. All right, Jim, we got to run. We're late for a break. Keep it up, man. We'll be watching. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Rod.